Hey everyone, this is Thomas from NurseMoneyTalk, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I did that I really think helped me to be more successful when it came to passing the NCLEX-RN. Before I get started, I want to go ahead and invite you to, if you find this video helpful, to don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to be notified of more videos like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos that we'll have posted. So let me go ahead and start this off by saying that a while back, I actually posted like a video similar to this. And in that video, I was focusing more on the things that I did that I thought that helped me be more successful when it came to passing the NCLEX-PN, which, if you don't know, that is the licensing exam to become a licensed practical nurse or licensed vocational nurse, depending on where you're at. And a lot of the stuff that I am going to share a lot of it will be the same. Which, if you haven't watched this video, watch the one on the NCLEX-PN, then that won't matter, because it'll be the first time you'll be seeing this. If you have watched that before, I will say that there are some differences that I would encourage you to keep watching, so you'll hear that. But at the same time, the thing that I want to highlight is that if a lot of it is the same, then to me that just shows that it worked. Like, it worked for me twice. So if it worked, if it worked more than once, then why change a system if it's working? So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you might be wondering is, how many questions did it take me to pass the NCLEX-RN? Now, if you didn't already know, the minimum number of questions to pass the NCLEX-RN is 75, and then the max I think is like 200 and something. But though they've because of what's currently going on, they've changed it here. They've changed it a couple times, changed it around. But honestly, that's not really even the point, and I don't think that really matters, because the thing that I want to focus on in this section is that I do think that at times as students we get too fixated on how many questions does it take to pass the NCLEX exam, and honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, the minimum 75. So if it takes you 75, perfect. If it takes you the max, like let's say it's 200 and whatever. If it takes you 200 and whatever, all the way up to the very last question to pass, who cares? At the end of the day, as long as you pass, that's the only thing that matters. Because, and the reason why I kind of get very have like a strong opinion on this, because I mentioned this in the last video, and then I've mentioned this in a couple of other videos, is that I think, like, when you get so fixated on a number, it's like, I have to pass at 75, I have to pass at 75, then I think you can really psych yourself out. And if you are the type of person who, you already have a lot of test anxiety, or you're very prone to test anxiety, then what I would say to you is, why put yourself in that situation to then, kind of invite more anxiety on yourself? And the reason why I say this is so let's say, you'll be fixated at that 75. So 73, question 73 will come. You'll be thinking, oh my goodness, okay, so I got 2 more to go. Well, now it's 74. Okay, I got 1 more to go, 1 more to go, 1 more to go. All right, so 75. All right, this is the last one. I definitely passed. And then you get question 76. And now it's like, oh my goodness, question 76. So I didn't pass the 75. Does this mean I'm doing worse than I thought? So as you can see, that works against you if you pass 75. But then the thing about it is, some students will actually then still be fixated on at 75, because the thing is, you can still fail at 75. You can pass or fail at 75 at that minimum question. So that's why I think like your focus should be, I need to just focus on one question at a time. Okay, 73, then 74, then 75, then 76, keep going. If it takes you to 100, who cares? Because at the end of the day, you could pass at 100 and then have a classmate that fails at 99. So one of the things that I also then focused on was trying to find out what the kind of like the NCLEX environment was like. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. In this day and age, you can, obviously look at YouTube channels kind of like this one that you're looking at. You can, there's articles you can read. There's there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of materials where you can kind of sort of get an idea of what it's like. But one of the things that I think actually really helped me for the NCLEX-RN in terms of really figuring out what it was like was actually taking the NCLEX-PN partways through nursing school. Now, separate video, and I'll link to that above, where some programs, or not actually some programs, where some states might actually let you be able to sit for the NCLEX-PN exam once you've taken so many classes, or once you've met whatever requirements that they have when you're in RN school. And so then you can take the NCLEX-PN, you can definitely, technically get your RN licensure, your LPN licensure. And so I got mine roughly about halfway through RN school. Now, there are pros and cons to that, and like I said, link to the video on that so you can check that out for more information on that. But for the purposes of what I'm talking about in this video, that really did help me because, when I went in to take the boards, it was like a lot of the paperwork and process were fairly, somewhat similar. And so the test taking environment, because for my RN, I went to the exact same testing location and whatnot to take the exam. I believe it was like Pearson View or something like that administered the exam. And so a lot of it was the test rules. A lot of it was fairly similar in terms of what my experiences were. The rules were very similar in terms of like the actual testing environment rules. And so that really helped me in terms of like my anxiety and everything else. So while like I had classmates who were worried about, oh my goodness, like what's this gonna be about? What's this gonna be like? And yada, yada, yada. Like I was just kind of like, once I looked at it, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, this is, I've kind of been through this. It's not that big of a deal. Kind of like a fun fact deal, or kind of like a side note, is that actually, since I already had my LPN exam, in a weird way, that kind of did help my anxiety, because like I was thinking to myself, like regardless of what happens, I have the LPN. Obviously the goal is for the RN, and that's what I ultimately wanted. But it was just one more thing that I thought really kind of helped me. So if you're listening to this and you're fairly early on in your program, then definitely check out your nursing, reach out to whatever your state board of nursing is, and see if that is an option. Because if nothing else, I actually think that paying the money and a little bit of the hassle to take the NCLEX-PN is kind of nice in terms of really getting an idea of what to expect ahead of time. The next thing is I had to figure out how I was actually going to study for the NCLEX. So there's several different ways to do this. Like some students will form study groups, I guess, like NCLEX study groups. I wasn't really a huge fan of that. Some students will actually use like their textbooks for that, which I actually think textbooks are, for me personally, I think they're actually very poor resources for the NCLEX. To me, like there's just too much fluff. There's a lot of fluff there. Finding answers to questions that I might have is just very difficult. And so what I ended up doing was I actually signed up for several NCLEX courses and whatnot. And you can, I'll put a link to, some of the, the ones that I've liked or, other students have liked as well. I'll put a link to those in the descriptions below. But the NCLEX course really helped. I took one I had two. One was all online and the other one had an online resource and then also some classroom time, like a live lecture deal as well. I would really recommend it. You can also go to NurseMoneyTalk.com/NCLEX to see kind of like some lists of NCLEX resources and whatnot. And because those courses or those NCLEX preps, if you will, typically give you a lot of resources as well. And so they'll give you a lot of study aids, study materials, if you will, practice questions. And so instead of me relying on the book to study for the NCLEX, which pretty much I didn't do, I relied on those study aids and those study materials that were specifically geared for the NCLEX. Because the way I look at them is like your nursing school textbooks were geared towards you passing nursing school tests. And my thing is I needed materials that were not geared for nursing school, but was geared towards passing the NCLEX. To me, those are two very different things. You would think they would be the same. I don't personally think. Somebody might argue otherwise, but to me, they were two different things, two different ways to approach them. And so those study aids were really good at doing that. But the other thing that those study aids or those NCLEX preps were really good at was, which leads me to that next one, is forming a game plan. A lot of times those NCLEX courses or those NCLEX preps will actually have like a game plan made for you, like one in particular that I'm thinking about. Like you can schedule I think they have a 4-week one, a 6-week one, an 8-week, or like a 12-week or something like that. So they actually and then based on like which week, like how many weeks, so pretty much like how many weeks you're giving yourself to study until you take the NCLEX, like they'll actually set up a game plan for you. And so to me, that was really important. Now, I didn't have those I didn't really use those NCLEX prep courses. I just kind of came up with my own. But I know a lot of students, had a lot of classmates that did use them. A lot of current students use the kind of like the game plan set up on NCLEX prep courses, and find a lot of success with that. And because the next thing that I did that was that really helped me be successful, and this kind of has a lot to do with the game plan that I had, which was centered around doing a ridiculous amount of practice questions, like a lot of practice questions. Like I was every single day, when I was in, break time at school or had downtime at, in school in between lectures, practice questions. When I was working, I had break time or downtime, practice questions. At home, practice questions. Like it was practice questions nonstop. And then on top of those practice questions, like I think there is a right and wrong way to do practice questions, and so one of the things that I did that I found that was really helpful for me was that when I did practice questions, I focused on why was the correct and what is the actual correct answer. And what I mean by that is, so any good NCLEX prep will give you a ton of practice questions. Like I said, you'll find a link to some good ones below in the descriptions. And so with good practice questions, you're also then going to have good rationales. If there was a question and I answered it and I put A, but B was the actual correct answer, then for me, when I went to look at the rationale, I was not concerned with why A was wrong. What I was concerned about was why was B the correct answer. And so that's what I did, was that I focused on the rationale for the correct answer. There might actually be research that supports this. I thought there was. There might. I don't know. If I get a chance to look at it, I'll make a note and then put it in the descriptions below. But this honestly was what worked for me. And so that's what I honestly rolled with, because that was something that was really successful for me for the NCLEX-PN. So I rolled it right over for the NCLEX-RN, and I found it was very successful as well. The last thing that I'll mention that I found that was really helpful for me in terms of NCLEX success was I stopped doing practice questions about 1 to 2 days before the exam. Might have been 1 to actually 3 days before the exam, and I was just focused on just chilling out, hanging out, and trying to de-stress. And so maybe you're into yoga, maybe you're into working out, running, or whatever the case is. But I really think a couple days before the exam, just putting the study material away, trying to de-stress, trying to kind of focus, start getting into a good sleeping and eating pattern as well. Because to me, once you get that close to the exam, I'm not sure there's really that much studying that's really going to make that much of a difference relative to how much of a difference I think just having just a nice little break time would make. And then, because the other part of this step is to just gear yourself up for the exam day, because you want to kind of show up on time. You want to know where your exam's going to be at. Make sure you already have a route that will get you from point A to point B. Where in the building is it at? And the thing is, you don't want to run late. You don't want to be stressed out. So you want everything to be working in your favor as much as possible. In the videos that you'll see here that'll show up to my left, you're actually going to see some videos geared around the NCLEX and whatnot, some other helpful tips that you're more than welcome to check that out. Let me know if you have any questions below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, and I will catch you very soon in that next video.